Good afternoon, and welcome to this week's edition of It Could Be You. I'm your host, John S. I'm back with you live, I think I'm still alive, in the studio right here at KABF 88.3 FM right here in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I've got several folks waiting to talk with me on the phone, and it's going to be a return visit by the groups known as Citizens Climate Lobby and Citizens Climate League. Of course, the Arkansas chapters. They've been on before, but it's interesting to get as big, as wide, as varied feedback from these organizations. They have this habit of kind of changing who's going to be on the program. So I've got one person returning, and I got two, shall we say, newbies who will be contributing some very, very definite and very first-hand knowledge about, again, aspects of climate change, climate awareness, that, honest to goodness, I wish a lot more people would take to heart. But more about that in just a little bit. I do want to, once again, thank you for the encouragement that you've given, that you told me that you listen into It Could Be You as well as to the other KABF programming. And I do appreciate your recommendations as far as future topics are concerned and future guests. Please keep listening. Now, you may not be able to get through during It Could Be You because my guests are all waiting to talk with me on the phone. But if you want to get a hold of me, put in a call to the KABF office. You can leave a message for me, send a text, send an email to KABF, and the powers that be will make sure that I get it. Your feedback is very, very important. Very important. And I want to make sure I keep getting that feedback so that I will continue to bring guests, topics, and information that, doggone it, I don't think you're going to really get much of an opportunity to have access to on any other media outlet in, well, this part of Arkansas, maybe the entire state. So keep listening, keep coming in and coming up with those suggestions for future topics, future guests, comments, questions to put to the guests. It could be you hungry. It could be you homeless, or it could be you who is getting quite upset, quite concerned, worried about the future of planet Earth with the way that more than a few individuals have been kind of, shall we say, wasting a lot of the resources and making it difficult, making things tougher. Maybe not for us directly, but certainly for our children, our grandchildren, our future generations. And that, as I understand it, that's why all of the states, certainly Arkansas, has a chapter of Citizens Climate League and Citizens Climate Lobby. So, without further ado, I'm going to ask if the three folks that I've got from those organizations, I want to ask if the three folks from Citizens Climate League and Lobby are with me at the moment.
I'm here, John.
Okay.
This is Shelley.
All right. Shelley, how about starting off the procedures by introducing yourself and your connection to either or both organizations?
Well, first, John, let me say thank you to you for having us on again and for having us on before, and thank you to your listeners for tuning in. This is such an opportunity to talk with people, and hopefully we get to hear some different perspectives, too. Robert McAfee and I founded the the Fayetteville chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby at the end of 2012. And then after that, 8 chapters developed over the years as we worked through our state coordinator, who's now Jan Schaefer, and she's spoken with you many, many times.
That she
Citizens
has.
Climate League, Robert started because we had made some great relationships with some wonderful people in the South Arkansas, and we wanted to help them to attend a CCL conference in D.C. So Robert created the Climate League so we could solicit donations for scholarships to send. And we ended up sending about 30 people, paying for about 30 people to go to the CCL conference, and about 18 from South Arkansas. So we were able to build great coalitions talking about climate change and also civil rights, education, and economic justice.
All right. And which of the two newcomers would like to go first, introducing him or herself?
I can go.
All right.
My name is Sarah.
Uh-huh.
My name is Sarah. I currently go to Arkansas State University, and I found out about Citizens Climate Lobby through a big environmental fair, and I was there representing a club that I started on campus known as the Environmental Club. And so I joined CCL about 3 years ago now, and I've been working with my local chapter, and recently took on a position as the regional fellow for several states in our area. And, you know, it's just really important to keep educating people in our area about climate change and everything that CCL can do for us. And just want to say thank you for having us on.
Okay, all right. And I know there's a third person on the line.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Give your name to the folks out there, please.
Yes, my name is Benetick Maddison. I've been here in Arkansas for almost 20 years now, but I'm originally from the Marshall Islands.
Oh, yeah.
I'm currently working at the Marshallese Educational Initiative, a local nonprofit here in Springdale, as a project specialist for youth, climate, and nuclear issues. I joined CCL last year in 2019. I was introduced to CCL by one of our friends. He's also a Marshallese. His name is Chris Ballos, and became involved with CCL starting last year.
Okay. Now, there's Citizens Climate League and Citizens Climate Lobby. How about starting off by reminding everybody maybe the one or two best ways to get in contact with both of these organizations?
Well, the contact information for the Climate League is www.arkccl.org.
One more time. Give that one more time, please.
That's www.arkccl.org.
Okay. And would there be a second way that you really encourage people to get in touch with your particular organization?
Well, for Citizens Climate Lobby, for the national lobby, you can just type in www.citizensclimatelobby.org.
Okay.
Write it out.
Okay.
Or you can check out our Facebook pages, Fayetteville Citizens Climate Lobby, Little Rock Citizens Climate Lobby, Jonesboro Citizens Climate Lobby.
Gotcha. Now, are one or both, just as a reminder to everybody out there, are one or both of the CCL groups still welcoming volunteers and donations if and when necessary?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. And they can find out how to volunteer as well as how to donate by going to the respective websites. Am I correct on that?
That's right, and I'd like to just mention something. I just got a note from the CCL National that a young man, Lathan Smiley, just went through a 9-week training in CCL processes and letter writing and lobbying, and so we have not had the fortune to meet him yet. We're very anxious to meet him. I believe he's in Fayetteville, and we want him to give a presentation on this training that he had, and so we really would like for some young people to come and hear what he has to say about what he did.
Well, and you know, it's very interesting. You say the emphasis on young people, but I want to share this with you. Earlier today, I got a hold of a National Public Radio interview. There's a new biography about a fellow by the name of James Baker. Now, he was a very, very important person of influence with, believe it or not, Republicans, roughly from the time of Ronald Reagan through the administration of George W. Bush. Now, these two individuals who were interviewing him said that he's going on 90 if he hasn't passed that threshold already. But even at 90 years of age, he is passionately devoted to a cause that would make a few, shall we say, conservatives kind of, ooh, whoa. And it turns out that this topic, this issue that he's really pushing for is carbon pricing. Believe it or not, carbon pricing. Now there you're getting it, say, from one end of the age spectrum, but from, as I understand, all of you want to really reach out on the program today to people of all ages, younger ages perhaps in particular, to get their feedback, to get their input. Am I going off on the deep end here, or am I reasonably in the ballpark?
Well, I would like to give Sarah and Benetick a chance to talk about that. I would just like to mention that James Baker is also working with George Schultz and Greg Mankiw and a whole bunch of other conservatives on carbon pricing, too. Well, there are a lot of conservatives, especially young conservatives, who are really concerned about climate change.
Well, now, before we get into that, I did want to make sure that I understand that one or the other of your organizations, or both, are going to be having some upcoming events, and maybe you'd like to get the word out about when, where these events are going to be coming up, so that more people, conservative, middle of the road, liberal, progressive, regardless of definition or identification, they can get more acquainted with your groups and become a part of what you're trying to do regarding climate change and climate awareness. As I understand it, there's one that's coming up is called Climate Justice.
Local Stories and Community Solutions. It is October 20th from 6:30 to 7:30 on, that's Tuesday, October 20th on Zoom, and you can register for it at arkccl.org.
Okay. Now another one. Go ahead.
Well, the question, there will be a forum of 4 really informed, impressive people. I have the names here. But the question they will be examining is, how is climate change impacting Arkansans? And can we respond effectively and with compassion in this local and global threat?
Now, I don't know, and please clarify for me and for everybody else, I don't know if this is going to be a part of it. You're talking climate justice, but there's also an event called Community Solutions. Is that a different event coming up?
That's the same event, Climate Justice, Local Stories, and Community Solutions.
Gotcha. And are there any other events at this time, whether they're going to be virtual or perhaps further down the road in person, that you'd like to let the listeners know about?
Sarah or Benetick, are you planning anything? Is the Marshallese community planning anything?
Yeah, anything at the schools, maybe anything at the different universities?
Yes. So right now, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So right now, with the Marshallese Educational Initiative, we are planning to have a climate forum sometime next year, depending on how the pandemic looks by hopefully next summer.
Right.
But that's the plan right now, and we're still in the beginning stages of planning.
Okay. All right. And Sarah, did you have anything to add to that? Anything coming up at any of the universities, any of the school districts, anything like that?
Yeah. So we are hoping to return to our few-week lecture plan that we originally had planned in April, but obviously had to push that back. So we're hoping to get that back, hopefully in November, or we might push it back until March, depending what we can get organized in that amount of time. But it'll be a few-week lecture series tackling all the different issues, different perspectives of why climate change is important. And we're trying to reach as many different audiences as possible, whether you're a farmer, you're a preacher, anything. We're just trying to tackle it all. So once we get that, maybe I'll reach back out and give you some more information of how to promote that event and get more people involved.
Now, with that in mind, I was told that that one or both of the CCLs have like a new partner, a new project underway, and it's called the Environmental Voter Project.
Yeah, Benetick or Sarah, do you know about that? Jan has been working on that. The issue is that there are a lot of people who care about the environment, thousands and thousands and thousands who don't vote. So if we just reached out to these people who care about the environment and say, hey, go vote, then, we could actually have some votes for the environment. I'm looking for the information that Jan sent me.
When I was on the phone with her a couple of days ago, she gave me something. I'd like to quote this and maybe have you pick up on that. And the quote from the Environmental Voter Project is, and here it is, remaking the electorate to get more environmentalists to vote, and in every single election.
Yeah, right. So they've been forming teams to call people, citizens. The volunteers have been working with the project on phone banking, text banking, and I know that we have two people running for president. One will probably have a stronger environmental emphasis than the other, and we are totally nonpartisan, but we are asking people to consider the environment when they vote. It's hugely important.
And it's going to be important regardless of what a person's political identification or leanings or anything like that would be.
Well, considering, Sarah or Benetick could talk about this too, but the oceans are warming faster and the Arctic is melting faster, and we are all terribly worried about our friends in the West who are losing their homes.
Well, and I wish you would.
4 million acres have been lost in the West.
Yeah, and to fire and to maybe some collateral damage that has not been done yet, but will if major changes are not there. So please.
Yeah, if I may comment on that really quick.
Go for it.
I'm actually originally from Los Angeles, California, and so my family is still out there. And speaking about those fires, my family has been on evacuation notice for weeks, and thankfully the fire closest to our home is now under control. But I will say the recent fires before all of these ones, I did have some other family members lose their homes and friends have to evacuate. And so it's something that a lot of people here in Arkansas don't see firsthand, and there's not a direct connection.
Well, out of sight, out of mind, something like that, I guess.
Exactly. I believe a lot of the central states seem to be detached from the reality of climate change and how it's affecting a lot of people. And I think that's why it is really important for them to be educated and get involved with organizations like CCL to meet so many different people.
Okay, well, let me just throw this open to the both of you. From your personal experience, whether it's going to be from the California wildfires over these last several years to what's been going on for a longer period of time with the Marshall Islands, okay, what do you want to really get across to everybody, not just the people listening in, but everybody, based from what you've seen? Go for it. What do you want to get across to them?
Yeah, so the Marshall Islands is one of 4 low-lying island nations in the world. It is on the front line of climate change, and the islands are on average 6 feet above sea level.
And it's the rising sea level that could, yes.
Absolutely, and right now, what we're seeing in the Marshall Islands is that the beaches that we used to enjoy 20, 30 years ago, they're disappearing. There's also coral bleaching. We're also seeing, again, the ocean is warming up pretty quickly, which can have a very huge impact on the local community over there, because so many of them depend on the ocean for food.
Mm-hmm. And, well, it's not, and what I think we're going to be in a position to get, now this is speculation still, but the Hurricane Delta that's been making the news for the last couple of days, we could be on the receiving end of at least a little bit of that. And again and again, it's the research into climate change. It's the research into climate awareness, changing weather patterns that have pointed a finger and at the reason for the difficulty. And the finger is pointing at, well, for lack of a better term, us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, the research has said that warmer temperatures create more evaporation, and create, there's more water held in these storms, and the heat from the water also makes the storm stronger. So while we may have the same number of storms, they will be just more dangerous, more devastating to communities that they hit. Something I'd like to mention also is CCL and environmental groups are increasingly acknowledging that it's our people of color, Black and Indigenous people of color, who are most impacted by these storms because it's harder for them to recover after the storms, or they may be in areas that are more strongly hit, just like in Katrina.
lower down on the economic scale as well.
Lower down, and many people who are immigrants are afraid to go ask for help. So this is something, in order to combat climate change, we also have to address racial equity and social justice.
Well, and now, it's interesting that despite the last week's debate disaster, climate change was one of the topics that was at least brought up. Now, the shouting and the fussing and so on kind of drowned it out. But do you think that this was a good step forward to have climate change, climate awareness even brought up during a debate to get the candidates' reactions, such as they were?
I definitely think it's a very important issue that should be on the agenda for discussion. And the response that the candidates give really is just a huge indicator to all voters of what is valued. The way they respond really shows if they value climate change and environmental justice, because based on their response is going to show you if they will do something about it when they are appointed,
Well,
and so it's just really important to bring that up.
And to in a manner of speaking, light a fire under them and keep the fire going to make sure that they are going to listen to the scientists, that they are going to be paying more attention to the research.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, as we saw in the last debate, there was one candidate who kind of mentioned actually going to tackle the issue as best they could, while the other didn't really have any promises.
I'm not, and we won't name names. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now, with the Marshall Islands, as an example, with the Marshall Islands, with the new knowledge that verifiable research has demonstrated that we are responsible for the threat to the Marshall Islands and to other parts of the earth, I wanted to ask you, what short-term actions and maybe some long-term actions that you'd like to see used to reverse the threat to the Marshall Islands, and to see if any of those same short or long-term actions could have the same impact on reversing climate change, well, right here in the state of Arkansas?
I think the first step for me would be education. It's really important that we have climate change be taught in the classroom, because young people will be the ones to inherit this planet. And You know, a lot of people don't understand what's going on in the Marshall Islands. And I forgot to mention that the Marshall Islands was a ground zero for nuclear testing by the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
From 46 to 58.
And it was both hydrogen as well as atomic bombs. Oh, yes.
Yes. 67 nuclear weapons were tested over there. And
above ground.
Yes. And the nuclear waste is still there. And so with rising sea level, that's going to be another issue that we have to worry about.
Well, and not just we as in the sense of Marshall Islands, because the rising levels, well, correct me if I get this wrong, but wouldn't that be yet another way of distributing, for lack of a better word, spreading the waste, the pollution, and the threats that such pollution carry with it?
Indeed, and you know, Marshall Islands is the capital for tuna fishery. 50% of tuna is caught in the Pacific, but the Marshall Islands is where they go and you know, do this business commercial fishery over there.
Right.
And so the world depends on tuna, and you know that's going to have an impact on not just on the locals and the Marshalls, but also around the world. And
please, everybody out there, please note that we all eat, and everybody, regardless of age, color, creed, whatever, how high up, how low down you are on the social economic ladder, you might have been hearing about mercury in some breeds, some species of fish, but atomic waste, I really wish and I really hope that a lot of people will start to say, whoa, wait a minute, am I going to put this poison into my system? You would think that would be something that would convince more people that climate change is real.
Yeah, and if I may comment as well, since we're talking about food, as you'll know, Arkansas grows a ton of different crops, mainly, corn and soy, which are two of the top 5 crops in America that we need for food. And there is a lot more research going on showing how either drought or even severe thunderstorms and whatnot affect those crops. And it's going to continue to affect the crops, and farmers aren't going to be able to produce as big of a yield. And here in Arkansas, food insecurity is such a huge issue, which brings us back to the issue of economical status as well as people of color, because they are typically the ones who are most food insecure. Well, and so with the increase of climate change, there's going to be less crops and more food insecure individuals.
Well, and not just that. I was told that both Citizens Climate League and Citizens Climate Lobby have had to emphasize something else, and I guess that for a lot of people it just hasn't hit them or just really hasn't sunk in as yet, that food production in this country must be, under our current circumstances, under our current conditions, has got to be seen as a national security measure.
I would like to say something else about that. Of course, it's a national security measure, but also it can be a solution because we have degraded our soils with monocultures, but with regeneration of our soils, with the proper kind of farming, we can actually start sequestering carbon in our soils, which will help to, draw it down from the atmosphere and, reduce the accumulation of carbon. That can be one of the actions that we take. You asked earlier about solutions. Of course, Citizens Climate Lobby, we've talked to you about this many times before, is the carbon fee and dividend, which is, a fee on the fuel companies that will raise the price of fuel, and then a dividend is given back to the people equally, so that people of low income will not have a problem meeting the higher prices. But it would also, this kind of a policy would incentivize farmers to make their soils carbon sequestration to actually use better kind of farming techniques that help to reduce our carbon load.
Well, it strikes me too that you could have a spillover effect into energy resources, that you could finally get more and more people to say, if this is going to be happening, maybe another way is going to be to invest as well as use wind energy, solar energy, the renewables.
Yes.
As a like I said, a side effect or a spillover effect.
Well, we have seen what incentives do for renewables in Arkansas, because when the third-party solar access bill was passed, Act 464, which allowed a third party to put up a solar unit so it didn't cost you anything. You just got the solar power from them and it cost you less. Suddenly, all these solar projects started going up. So there's a little bit of incentive, and renewable projects just spiked. If we had a carbon fee and dividend, that would have the same effect.
Now, I would like, we're already at the bottom of the hour, I'd like the listeners to kind of think about that for a little bit. That yes, change is needed. Yes, the research is out there that we can utilize. So we're going to take a break for a couple of minutes, and I want to share a little about 3 pieces of information with you out there. The folks right here at KABF, they get a little miffed if I don't do this at the bottom of the hour. But you're listening to this week's It Could Be You with my guests representing Arkansas Citizens Climate League and Arkansas Citizens Climate Lobby. Hang in there. You're listening to this week's It Could Be You, and we're going to be back with you in a couple of minutes. Hang in there.
Hey, Little Rock, did you know that every person counted in the U.S. Census equals $30,000 that goes into our community? That's a lot of cash. The city of Little Rock needs your help making sure our community gets every cent it deserves. Complete your census today at my2020census.gov, or you can call 1-844-330-2020. That's 1-844-330-2020. Do it now.
Because of the pandemic, many Arkansans are now at risk of being evicted from their homes. The current ban on evictions will end soon, but there are things you can do now to reduce your risk of losing your house or apartment in the future. Legal experts and tenant advocates will share their views on this and their recommendations on Speak Up Arkansas this Wednesday, October 7th at 5 o'clock p.m. on KABF, the voice of the people.
Hello, Little Rock. It's Megan Belfield from Be Mighty Little Rock, and we wanted to inform you that we will continue serving after-school and weekend meals for students 18 and younger this school year. Meals will be served at the following libraries: Children's Library and Learning Center, D. Brown, Fletcher, Maine, McMath, Nixon, Rooker, Sanders, Terry, and Williams. Meals will be served Monday through Friday, 4 to 5, except Williams will serve meals from 3:30 to 5 o'clock. All libraries will serve on Saturday, 11 to 12:30. Please go to BeMightyLittleRock.org for more information. Hope to see y'all soon.
And welcome back to the second half of this week's It Could Be You. Your host, John S., and I've got representatives of the Arkansas Citizens Climate Lobby and the Arkansas Citizens Climate League. I'm wondering if all 3 of them are still on the phone with me at this moment.
I am, John.
All right. Would you please reintroduce yourselves and give contact information for the League and for the lobby, please?
John, this is Shelley Buonaiuto. I'm part of the Fayetteville Citizens Climate Lobby. And the contact information for the League is www.arkccl.org.
Okay. All right.
And hi, John. This is Benetick Maddison. I've been a member of CCL for almost 2 years now.
Okay. And I think there's a third person there.
Yes, I'm Sarah Saucedo, and I'm part of the Jonesboro CCL chapter, and I've been here for about 3 years.
All right. Now, you brought up something in the first half of the program I'd like to pursue with all of you, or a couple of things. Now, one of the things that I understand that both the League and the Lobby are wanting to do is to reach out. You welcome personal stories from listeners, from everyone, about their work with climate awareness, or any projects maybe, or any work that's going on dealing with such awareness, and with the eye towards reversing climate change. These stories. How about telling the folks about these stories that you're looking for, and whether or not this would include stories that might have to do with setbacks as well as successes?
Sarah or Benetick, do you want to do that? Well, I'll take it.
Okay.
First, let me say that we are having this event. I will repeat that again. It's Tuesday, October 20th on Zoom from 6:30 to 7:30. You can register at arkccl.org, and it's called Climate Justice, Local Stories, and Community Solutions. I would just mention that Fort Smith was really impacted by the rains, the storm that happened there. And there were some people who did not receive the help that they needed because they were low income, they lived near the river, and their need was not discovered for a long time. So these are going to be some of the stories that we need to hear. We want to know how people have been impacted by climate change and by events that have been happening in Arkansas.
Well, now would that include say maybe like any school projects at the K through 12 schools, whether it's going to be maybe one student who's in virtual learning, or it's going to be a collaborative effort, say by some middle school students, to bring awareness to climate change, to bring awareness about the climate itself, and about how critically important it is that people know what's going on and know what to do and what not to do.
Sarah, what's been happening at the university?
Good start.
Yeah, so like I said previously, we did have a ton of events planned for in April, but had to postpone those. And as of now, as school's picking back up, we're still under certain restrictions and regulations due to safety issues. And so as we're working our way through those, we're trying to reestablish what kind of events we can continue on campus. As of right now, we still conduct our weekly campus cleanup to ensure that our campus, is nice and clean. And we also have been increasing our social media presence. And so we've just been trying to educate and inform students of what they can still be doing, even though we are in a different, time right now. And so a lot of the work we're doing is just simple videos reviewing ways that you can live an eco-friendly, more sustainable life as a college student. And we're just trying to work with our audience and still bring the knowledge and information that we can that we would normally be doing in an in-person setting. We're also going to be doing some events like repurposing items. So one is bringing in some old T-shirts and reusing them as dog toys that we'll then donate to our animal shelter. Or putting together like a clothing swap where people pretty much donate their clothes and we do an on-campus thrift store to, limit the textile mills and everything like that. So it's just small things as of right now, but hopefully we can get our lecture series back up, and hopefully that'll reach a lot more variety of audience that we're hoping to educate.
And am I correct in saying that both the League and the Lobby are going to do anything and everything to encourage K through 12 students to keep busy, to come up with these programs that will raise not only their, but maybe their families, the general public's awareness about climate change?
Well, some of the members of our group have been working in the Delta with the schools because it has been really difficult there because some of the areas don't even have broadband. So the kids have to do virtual school, but they don't have Wi-Fi. So how are they going to do it? Or they were dependent on lunch, and so a bunch of the parents down there got together and maintained the lunch program. But they're all putting themselves at risk of COVID, too. I believe the state has come through with some funding to increase broadband in that areas, but there's still an effort to promote charter schools over public schools, and that's something that we're going to have to be continuing to fight.
Well, and this might also, and correct me if I'm going off in the wrong direction, that this might also include, say, attention and help being given to programs to help low-income Arkansans deal, say, with these personal situations, whether it has to do with having access to enough food, access to renewable energy, things of that sort. Am I correct on that?
Actually, I'm dying to ask Benetick a question.
Go for it,
please.
Please.
It is that I just heard this weekend about an English-only law that prevents translation of important material into other languages, and I'm wondering if this has impacted the Marshallese community in getting information out about the COVID-19 pandemic.
Please address that.
Yes, I think this is the first time I've heard about that, but I will say that, language barrier is a huge problem for us Marshallese. Organizations like Marshallese Educational Initiative or the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences, as well as the RMI Consulate here in Springdale. We've been trying to utilize our social media pages to share information regarding COVID-19 to the public. Now, there are issues that we're also facing that I think they're being addressed right now.
For example,
in the healthcare area, we've had an issue with the lack of Marshallese medical interpreters, and this has been happening for quite a long time. Now, we had UMS or the state hire a few temporary Marshallese medical interpreters to help with interpreting at the hospitals, as well as trying to track cases within the Marshallese community.
And not just within the Marshallese community. You could make a similar argument for people whose first language is Spanish, and for some of the indigenous peoples coming out of Central America who do not really speak Spanish, and that it becomes a logistical nightmare to have maybe from English to Spanish, from Spanish into another language, and another language into the language that the indigenous person will understand. So, yeah, it strikes me that a very great deal. Well, okay, all right. Let me kind of put this to you in another way. Maybe we got to get some of these listeners out there to really kind of sit up and take notice. But I'm thinking worst case scenario, and please base this on your own direct personal experiences. Okay. What are the risks to this state, to the people, to the food supply, to the water, to the air? What are the risks to this state if Arkansas does not act, does not begin to get proactive on climate change? Based on your experiences, based on what you've been seeing, based on what you've been learning, what's the worst case scenario that's going to happen if no action is taken?
Honestly, from my view, we'll start seeing, warmer weather. And, with it being Arkansas, the weather can tend to be very bipolar. And as we were talking about crops, that's also going to impact our state's production in regards to the crops.
Sarah, what?
Sarah, I'd like to comment on the crop production. So my undergraduate degree is actually in nutritional science, and so I've studied food insecurity for quite a while. And as I mentioned before, I think our crops the crop yield's going to decrease, and the crops that do make it, there's more research showing how the increase of carbon in the atmosphere is actually also affecting the nutritional value of our crops. And so as time progresses, not only will crop yield decrease, but the crops that are produced are not going to be as nutritious as they once were.
Well, and if I may just add to that, Shelley, before you pick up on that, I was listening to the weather just last night, and if this Hurricane Delta stays on track, if it veers a little bit more to the west, apparently a lot of farmers who are just about ready to start harvesting some of these crops, they're going to run a pretty bad risk of seeing their crops depleted or diminished, if not wiped out altogether. So there again, climate change, climate awareness, it's interconnected. And a lot of people, I guess, need to be made aware of that. Shelley, I didn't want to cut you off, but from your experiences, from the work you've been doing, what would you like to add to what our two college students have been saying?
Well, first, let me say how deeply I appreciate our college students and what they have been saying. And I would like to bring in disease vectors. When I was in South America, I heard about this disease, Chagas disease. It's a little bug that they call the kissing disease bug, and it called it that because it can fall out of a thatched roof or something, land on your cheek, and it deposits a microorganism in your body that there is no cure for, and in 10 years you might die of heart failure. Well, this was in the tropics of Bolivia in 1980. It is now in South Arkansas. With increased heat, these diseases are going to be coming up, and there's more Lyme disease, there's more Rocky Mountain spotted fever. These disease vectors are going to be affecting us, and since we're talking about insects, we also have to worry about the change in pollination, and how the I've forgotten what, the phylogenetics or something they call it, or I've forgotten exactly what they call it, but it's the connection between when the little insects hatch out, or when the flowers bloom, and when the birds come in. Everything, because of the change in heat, gets this. It is not happening at the time it should be happening, and so the entire ecology gets out of balance.
Oh, for crying out loud! Oh, me. And here again, just proof positive that things are interconnected when it comes to climate change and climate awareness. See, I was for a number of years living in Southeast Asia. Fortunately, I was not in the heart of the area that was really known for producing dengue fever and hemorrhagic fever. But you kind of learn. You kind of learn when you're in a different part of the world, and of course, I'm hearing stories about how dengue and other fevers are kind of closing in on this part of the world as well. So, so again, it's how things are interconnected. We've been talking about climate change, climate awareness, and it was brought to my attention not all that long ago that there may be a lot of us who are taking a look at the air, the pollution in the air, and so on. But here in Arkansas, I've also been made aware that the depletion of what's called the water or the aquifers is getting to be a very, very serious concern as well, and will have its impact on climate change, on food security, on food availability as well. So again,
the Sparta aquifer in the Sparta aquifer in West Arkansas. I know I was talking to a rice farmer, Mark Isbell. He said it keeps him up at night. He doesn't know it's already depleted so badly, and he said people just keep because the farmers are dependent on this aquifer, and if it depletes, there's no way for it to recharge.
There you go. There you go. Now, I'd like to direct this at our two students. Okay. I hate to say it, but when it comes out that the research is showing more and more clearly the damage that has been done and the ways that we can effectively turn or reverse course, that there are still going to be people who are saying, oh, it's a hoax. Oh, well, it's not affecting me, so why should I worry about it? So from your experiences, how do you believe that such wrong thinking, or if you prefer, opposition, is going to have to be dealt with and is going to have to be effectively overcome?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that. We were actually just discussing this in my environmental law class yesterday. And the class kind of came to the conclusion that it's not a matter of they don't want to accept the fact and the research that is pretty much undisputable at this point, but it's because the issue itself has become so polarized that people are straying away from just acknowledging the fact and acknowledging the different options we can use, and they're just turning to the political side of it rather than actually just the facts and what we should be doing as a community, as a whole, as just a country, and globally even. So I think it's more or less just trying to get people to see outside of the political spectrum and just see into what we can do to work together, because this is an issue it's not a political issue. It shouldn't be. It's just become so polarized, and climate change affects us all. Climate change isn't going to see if you're on the left or the right side. It's not going to see what color you are or anything like that. It's going to affect us all equally.
There you go. There you go. And then what from your experience, what sort of hurdles have you had to encounter, and how do you think that they will have to be effectively dealt with?
I think, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, it's important to put climate change in the national curriculum. We need to be teaching this issue in the classroom. Because climate change is not tomorrow, it's not next week, it's not next month or next year. It's happening now. And we're already seeing the impacts of it across this country, in places like the Marshall Islands, around the world as well.
Right. And this once again is where I'd like to really remind everybody out there, certainly the K through 12 students, that this is a project that deserves attention. And if someone from a public or a private school, they get in touch with one of you, say directly, okay, and they say, okay, we're aware of this climate change that's going on. We're aware of the potential damage. What sort of guidance, what sort of information, what sort of projects would you recommend that I would have my K through 12 students get into in order not only for school credit to be done, but also to make more people, to make their parents, to make their families, to make their communities more aware of the threat, and I'm going to put it bluntly, the threat that we all face from climate change. If a K through 12 school reaches out, what sort of projects would you recommend that they pursue?
John, I would like to mention a slightly different angle when it comes to students, and that is that there are solutions, that change is possible, that land can be regenerated, and that this can be done with creativity and with art and with joy to bring attention to all these projects all over the world of regenerating deserts and reclaiming areas that have been denuded of forests, and all these things that give hope and possibility for the kids to work for the young people to work for. Because young people, I mean, Sarah and Benetick can talk about this, are faced with so much doom, but there is a possibility that, and things are happening. They don't appear to be happening on the political level, but on the ground. Last night I was looking at a website of 26 regeneration projects in Mexico reclaiming desert. These things can be researched and just beautiful projects done to help them and to talk about them.
Okay. Now, I've also, and I was asked to ask this question of you. Would it help, or do you think it might be going too far? Now, to get some people's attention on a totally different matter, the media, it really kind of sensationalizes a lot of things. And just lately, there's a news item that there's a couple of people who are terrorists, that what they've been doing are acts of terrorism. Do any of you think that there could be any good that could result if the media kind of portrays, in any way, shape, or form, portrays climate change, something akin to an act of terrorism? You know, to really get people's attention to say, okay, you don't take any action, we're leaving ourselves open to destruction from so-and-so and so-and-so.
I think if it were to be posed that way, it would get greater attention, and it would be definitely valued as more severe. You can look at different surveys conducted in the last election of how people rank different issues, and terrorism is typically in the top 3, whereas climate change and environmentalism is in the lower 15 to 20. So I think that that's pretty interesting to ask if that would get a response, and I think it would, because just that word itself of terrorism really gets people thinking, and it probably would switch their mindset and take it a little more seriously.
Well, any others? Any other thoughts? Any other feedback on that particular point?
Well, you know, the children, the Juliana versus the United States, did sue the United States for not protecting their future.
Oh, that's right. And what, based on your experiences, all three of you, based on your experiences, how important is this action? How important is this and similar actions to really get people to say, whoa, wait a minute, we're in this much danger? What would you say?
I'm going to let the young people speak.
For me, you know, it could mean life or death for my people. You know, we've been raising this issue for decades now, but the world continues to ignore our voices. And, you know, scientists are saying that within the next decade or a few decades, you know, the Marshall Islands could be wiped off the map.
And there would be a very great deal of spillover damage, maybe the wrong use of word, but a very great deal of damage that would ripple out.
Yes, there is a dome in the Marshall Islands called the Runa Dome. It was built by 4,000 U.S. servicemen back in the 1970s. And what's in the dome is nuclear waste. Scientists have warned the Marshallese government and those who are living around that area that if some hurricane came by or if rising sea level happens, you know, it could, you know, the dome could rip open and release all of these nuclear waste into the environment.
And really threaten a lot. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it at there because we're just really out of time.